I had always heard whispers about the Encantados, shape-shifting beings from the rivers of Brazil, dolphins that could walk as humans under the moonlight. It sounded like folklore, the kind of story told late at night to make the jungle feel even more alive. But I wasn't a believer, not until I saw them. It began on a humid night near the Amazon. The air was heavy with the smell of wet earth and orchids. I had been invited to a small riverside village to document traditional songs. The villagers welcomed me, but when the sun went down, their mood shifted. They told me not to wander near the river after dark. "That's when they come," an old man whispered, his eyes clouded with fear. I laughed it off, though uneasily. What could possibly be waiting in the black waters? Later, as I sat alone by the river's edge with my recorder, I heard music. Not the kind played on instruments, but something ethereal, a melody that rose and fell like the current itself. It was intoxicating. I leaned closer, straining to catch the sound, and that's when I saw movement. The surface of the water broke, and from the depths, a sleek, pale dolphin emerged, its skin glowing faintly under the moonlight. And then, before my disbelieving eyes, it changed. The dolphin's form stretched, shifted, became something human. A tall figure, elegant, smiling, yet the smile didn't reach its eyes. That was the first time I saw the Encantado. And the first time I realized that some legends aren't meant to be dismissed. The figure stood by the water's edge, droplets sliding from its skin as if it hadn't quite left the river behind. At first, I couldn't move. My mind tried to tell me this was impossible, that my tired eyes were playing tricks, but then it spoke. Its voice was smooth, melodic, almost too perfect. "You hear it, don't you? The song of the river." I swallowed hard. Who are you?" The figure tilted its head, amused, as though the question itself was foolish. It extended a hand toward me, long fingers, graceful but damp and cool, reflecting the pale moonlight. Something inside me screamed not to touch it, but another part of me felt drawn in, as though invisible threads were pulling me closer. I remembered the villagers' warnings: never follow the music, never meet its gaze too long. And yet, my body leaned forward, betraying me. The Encantado's smile widened, revealing something unnervingly sharp behind its perfect lips. "The river gives, and it takes," it whispered. "But those who listen are never the same again." I stumbled back, breaking the strange trance. The air seemed heavier, the jungle silent except for the steady rush of water. My chest pounded. The figure laughed, a sound that echoed far too long, rippling like the current. Then, with a sudden, fluid motion, it slipped back into the river, vanishing beneath the dark surface. But the song did not stop. It grew louder, pressing into my skull, until I realized with cold dread that the melody was not in the air anymore. It was inside my head. Night had already fallen over the old port, and the world around seemed frozen in thick darkness. Only the occasional flicker of lighthouse beams and the pale reflections of the moon on the water cut through the black canvas. Here, among rusting containers and abandoned warehouses, every sound echoed too loudly, and every shadow could be hiding a threat. It was in this suffocating silence that we first encountered what had been waiting for us. A cold wind blew in from the sea, carrying the stench of dampness, rust, and old fuel oil. Chains on the masts swayed, clinking faintly, as though touched by invisible fingers. Beneath the wooden pier, the water bubbled softly, as if something alive was lurking there, waiting for the right moment to break free. We moved cautiously, trying not to make a sound. Each step echoed like a hammer strike in our ears. In our hands were flashlights, their narrow beams cutting out fragments of the world, patches of rusted metal, broken ship parts, twisted ropes. The light seemed too weak to fight back the dark, and at the same time too bright, threatening to draw unwanted attention. Overhead, an old crane creaked. It hadn't worked in decades, its massive arms stretching toward the sea as though frozen in its last desperate attempt to hold on to something that had already slipped into the shadows. There was something unnerving about its stillness, like a skeleton standing watch over other people's fears. And then we heard it. At first, just a faint sound, something between a whisper and a sigh. Then it grew, shifting into a groan. The noise came from one of the containers. A massive metal box, its paint long corroded, stood apart from the others, abandoned like a forgotten grave. Its doors hung slightly ajar, and from the narrow openings seeped a current of air so cold it made our skin crawl. We drew closer, each step felt longer than the last, and even the pounding of our hearts seemed too loud. A thought flickered in my mind. What if it's a trap? But it was too late to turn back. The flashlight beam fell on the doors, deep scratches scarred the metal, wild, desperate marks, as if someone had fought for their life, trying to claw their way out. They weren't human marks, they weren't animal either. They were too precise, too symmetrical, too wrong. I touched the steel. It was icy, as though the container hadn't been standing in this world but somewhere else, in a place of endless cold and darkness. At that very moment, a sharp bang came from inside, then another. The doors shuddered violently, and we staggered backward. My chest tightened, and in my mind one word rang clear: run. But my legs refused to obey. We stood frozen, gripping our flashlights like weapons, as though the weak beams could somehow save us. Another crash, the gap widened, and from that blackness poured a darkness even thicker than the night itself, creeping outward like something alive. Something white emerged. At first, I thought it was cloth, maybe an old sail or a scrap of canvas. But when it shifted, I realized it was skin, pale, smooth, luminous under the flashlight beam, and then came the legs. They were long, unnaturally thin, wrong. They moved in jerks like a puppet pulled by unseen strings. There was no torso, no arms, just the legs. They dragged behind them a shadow that didn't match their shape, a shadow that twisted and bent in ways it shouldn't. And above them, impossibly small, was a head, out of proportion, almost childlike. It turned slowly, side to side, and though the features were blurred by the light, I knew it was looking directly at us. We couldn't breathe. The air itself had thickened, pressing down on our lungs. The creature stepped out of the container, deliberate, patient. Each movement echoed in our ears like metal being struck. It didn't hurry, and that was the worst part, the certainty that it had all the time in the world to reach us. I flicked off my flashlight, desperate to make it vanish. Darkness swallowed everything, and for a second it was easier not to see. But when I turned the light back on, it was closer, much closer. And then we realized it wasn't simply walking. It was learning. And with every step, it was getting better. The night swallowed us whole. The creature stood between us and the exit, its legs swaying like pendulums of some broken clock, its small head tilting slightly, as though trying to understand the very concept of us. It wasn't rushing. It didn't need to. Every deliberate step forward felt like the ticking of a countdown only it controlled. My pulse hammered in my ears. The beam of my flashlight trembled, dancing over the uneven surface of the pier. I tried not to blink, terrified that if I looked away for even a fraction of a second, it would be gone and worse, closer. The air around us was heavy, damp, and charged with a kind of silence that doesn't just mean absence of sound, but suppression of it, as though something immense was holding its breath. Behind me, one of the others whispered, "What? What is it?" His voice cracked, barely audible. The creature stopped, its head jerked unnaturally to the side, snapping toward him. For a moment, everything froze. Then it bent its knees in a way no living thing should, the joints flexing backward, and with an insect-like quickness it lunged forward. We screamed, instinct overrode paralysis. I stumbled back, nearly tripping on a coil of rope. My flashlight beams swung wildly, slicing through shadows, and for a split second I caught the reflection of its head, pale, smooth, devoid of any detail. No eyes, no mouth, no features at all, just a blank mask of flesh. It stopped inches away from one of us. The silence was unbearable. The creature didn't touch him, didn't move again. It only tilted its head higher and higher, as if sniffing a scent that wasn't carried on air but directly out of the soul. The poor guy whimpered, frozen. His legs gave way beneath him, and he dropped to his knees. I tried to shout, to draw its attention away, but my voice cracked uselessly. Then, without warning, the creature slowly extended one leg not to strike, but to hover above him, almost in a gesture of possession. The shadow it cast didn't match the movement. Instead, the darkness stretched across the ground, snaking toward the rest of us. Something primal snapped inside me. I grabbed a loose length of pipe from the dock and swung it, not because I thought it would hurt the thing, but because doing nothing was worse. The sound rang out, metal on flesh, or what should have been flesh. Instead, the pipe clanged like it had struck stone. The creature didn't flinch. But it turned. That faceless head angled directly toward me, and for the first time I felt the weight of its full attention. My skin prickled, my chest tightened, as though invisible hands pressed down on me. My thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. All I could hear was a single, echoing word, though I never spoke it aloud: mine. The creature stepped toward me, and the world seemed to shrink with each stride. The others scrambled, some retreating toward the water's edge, others ducking behind crates, but I couldn't move. My legs were lead. My breath came in short, shallow gasps, and my vision tunneled on the pale figure closing the distance. Then something changed. From the direction of the sea, a low, mournful sound rose. It was faint at first, like the hum of a ship far offshore. But it grew, deepening, resonating not in the air but inside our bones. The creature froze mid-step, its head tilted again, listening. For the first time, it hesitated. The sound wasn't mechanical. It was alive, a call, a warning, or maybe a command. The creature shuddered, its legs trembling as if resisting something greater than itself. Then, as though pulled backward by invisible strings, it retreated a step, another. Its blank head turned toward the black water, where ripples spread outward, though nothing had broken the surface. I should have run. I should have dragged the others and fled while we had the chance. But I couldn't tear my eyes away, because in that moment I realized something terrifying. The thing in front of us wasn't the only one. The water was stirring. The moonlight shimmered across the restless waves, and beneath, pale shapes shifted just out of sight. 1, 2, 3 too many to count. They were waiting, watching. The thing on the pier wasn't an intruder, it was a messenger. My heart slammed against my ribs. This wasn't an encounter we could survive, not here, not surrounded. I finally found my voice and shouted, "Run." And this time, my legs obeyed. Heart still racing, like, subscribe, and comment what do you think lurked beneath the water.